This is the first time that China really has experienced a hiccup in its expansion and its recovery. China has been led by industrial production, and the domestic economy has been following through. But right now, because of the energy shortage, and also because the global economy itself is starting to show signs of slowing down, especially the Asian supply chains, which are becoming more and more bottlenecks for the growth of the rest of the world, we're starting to see China starting to suffer from the drag, not only from its own energy problems and other problems at home, real estate problems, but also now the global economy is also starting to drag on the economy.
And to that point, then, you have the energy shortages, but what about the role of these other things like factors like bottlenecks in supply chains, rising production costs, etc.?
Well, actually, that's a very important point, Rochelle, and it's not talked about enough. People generally look at China as being a locomotive for the rest of the world, but people fail to realize that China is just part of the supply chain that includes the rest of Asia. And all of Asia has taken a very draconian approach toward COVID. Essentially, the zero tolerance for COVID infections and COVID spread has forced China and the rest of Asia to shut down. That completely shuts down not just the China hub of the supply chain, but also the Asian chains that connect the supplies together. And we see that in this globalized economy. Once we have many parts of the supply chain shut down, the global economy suffers tremendously.
Now, on the other hand, we did see a different story with services, which expanded in September. What's driving that?
Well, Rochelle, I think that's an artifact of the fact of the draconian measures that were put in place for COVID. We see a huge bounce back once these measures are released. What I'd like to see is a continuation of consumption, domestic private consumption, going for the next several months. That would convince me more that the recovery is in place. But it's very unlikely because industrial production has such an important role, and it pays a lot of people, a lot of salaries and wages, income depends upon industrial production. Once that starts to falter, it's going to be very hard for the service economy to make that up.
And speaking of consumption, National Day Golden Week kicks off today. What are the expectations for travel and other consumer spending this time around?
Well, that's where a lot of uncertainty rests, because traditionally this is the high spending time of the Chinese economy. People go on travel visits, but they can't do that because of COVID. They don't, and because of the fear that the factories are shutting down and they might be losing their jobs, people are not going to be willing to spend as much as they did in the past. So my concern now is that Golden Week may be somewhat tarnished relative to past years.
Now, I want to shift gears now and talk about this new report that shows China ranked #1 for outward foreign direct investment. How important is that distinction? What does that tell us?
It tells us that China has become a significant force in the global economy. It's no longer an emerging market. China has to be recognized as a source of investment in other parts of the world. Now, much of the emerging markets, the less developed countries, are benefiting from a lot of the outflow that comes from China. And China itself is receiving an enormous amount of inflows from the rest of the world, especially in the Western world. So the fact that capital leaves China is just a reflection of the fact that there are opportunities for China and the rest of the world, but the fact that so much money comes into China still represents the fact that China represents a huge market that the rest of the world wants to take advantage of.
And which countries would you say have benefited the most from Chinese investment?
I think a lot of the commodity supplying countries, because China's investment has been wrapped around the Belt and Road, and a lot of infrastructure building, and a lot of that has been focused on developing commodity-intensive resources in Africa, Middle East, and other parts of Asia.
And obviously we know Belt and Road, also another area where we're seeing a lot of investment. So as we look at the types of investments and the locations, what do you see as the long-term strategy here?
I think for China, it's a dual strategy. Within China, the dual circulation strategy that Xi Jinping has put in place means that they're going to be developing more and more of the high-tech, high-value-added industries. And the lower value-added type of activities will be shunted off to the rest of the world as appropriate for an economy like China, which is rapidly emerging as a major force and a major country in the rest of the world. I think the responsibility for China is to be able to manage these investments in a way that benefits not only its own citizens, but also allows other countries to follow its coattails and to be a model for development for the rest of the world.